Hello, everyone. This is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful, Rabbit Hole, King, DL, Lord Frey, Grim, Clover, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. So, I just made a video talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake because I hadn't talked about it yet. Like, I had just played it and, very negative feelings on it. I thought it was a very poor release. I thought it was terrible. Will not support, like, any future subsequent games. Like, Final Fantasy is a dead IP to me. And I'm sure more and more people like are feeling that way all the time because Square Enix feels like they're becoming irrelevant. It feels like we're kind of at the point that Final Fantasy is a dead IP. And this is a major thing to me because it's amazing to me how something like Metal Gear Solid, which was hyped up as being one of the biggest franchises in all of gaming, like a masterpiece of game design, like the gold standard when it came to video game storytelling. It was remarkable to me how like something like Metal Gear Solid 5 could come out, be supposedly one of the best games ever made, this 10 out of 10 masterpiece, and years later nobody talks about it. Nobody remembers it. Nobody's really anticipating Kojima's next project. Nobody really expects a revival for Metal Gear. Like, Metal Gear Solid 5 is, objectively speaking, a failure on all fronts. Because it didn't resonate with hardcore fans. It didn't do well commercially because the developers will not be able to follow up on it. It didn't It ruined the legacy. Like there's so much about Five that I think has kind of flown over most people's heads. And what really confuses me about Five is just how forgotten the Metal Gear IP is. Like, yeah, sure, you'll see a handful of people talking about like, yeah, I like Metal Gear Solid 1, yeah, I like 3, but like more and more, I think we're kind of reaching the point where people are kind of forgetting that Metal Gear Solid was ever popular. It's become kind of an obscure thing. Like, yeah, fans still exist, but the days of saying that like Metal Gear Solid 3 has like the best ending in all the video games, or that like Metal Gear Solid 1 like destroyed the N64, like those days are basically over. Like nobody talks about those games in that context anymore, and it makes me think that we are in the middle of the next gaming crash because so many of these companies are like that. Like Capcom Showcase, right? What did they show off, really? Basically nothing. Konami is producing nothing. Square is producing nothing. Like, all of these major companies that have spent the past 25 years trying to destroy Nintendo are floundering. Like, Square Enix sold off Tomb Raider, like, and Crystal Dynamics to pay for NFTs. And they backed off on that deal, supposedly, but that just screams to me how incompetent they are in managing their brand, understanding the value of the stuff that they own, and capitalizing on it in favor of chasing like a fad, really, like NFTs, something that barely lasted like 3 months. Nobody talks about them anymore. There is no future in them. Like, it's like if crypto bros suddenly woke up and realized that like they're not going to get rich off of investing in this digital currency. Like it's like NFTs are dead, okay? And the fact is, all of these companies are so intent on chasing easy money that they will never put the money, effort, or work into developing like compelling, new, interesting video games for their audiences. They really do think they can just coast off their established brands at this point. Like Square Enix, like that's something that the Square Enix CEO has talked about, really. Like, oh man, like why haven't you made a new Chrono Trigger? Well, because it wouldn't sell as much as Final Fantasy. Chrono Trigger, it's the numbers don't reflect the sales, bro. Like, how dare people want like a little bit of variety? How dare people want like new IPs, new video games, new entries in beloved franchises? No, no, no. Like, oh, it's not Final Fantasy, so it doesn't sell. Like, it's kind of remarkable to me. Like, it seems like that they have become creatively stagnant. They are unable to innovate. They're unable to do anything new or interesting, and it's really starting to catch up with them. I think there is no enthusiasm for Final Fantasy 16. There is no enthusiasm for Final Fantasy Remake 2. There is no there is no enthusiasm for the future of Resident Evil. That's the big thing I'm talking about lately, is that Resident Evil kind of feels like it's dead as well, even though nobody wants to talk about that. Like all of these non-Nintendo franchises are dying, and the industry doesn't want to talk about it. And like I think PC gaming and like PlayStation will not be able to prop these companies up. Like I think eventually people are just going to like phase out of buying and supporting these games. Like yeah, at this point, like I feel like the only reason these games sell at all is because like for a significant for the gaming population, like gaming is all they have. Like these guys have no hobbies, they have no relationships, they have no maidens, as Elden Ring would fans would put it. Like they don't do anything other than consume products and like talk about consuming products. And like that's so far removed from where I am now, where like I straight up do not own like most video game platforms. Like I'll never try Amazon Luna. I'll never buy another PlayStation. I'll never buy another Xbox. Like I'm scaling back the things I buy because first of all, like I don't enjoy everything that comes out, but second of all, like I don't have time. Like I don't really have the desire to play every game that comes out anymore. And I think that's probably the best way to look at it. In that like the gaming industry may be dying, but that's not really a bad thing, honestly. Because yes, it was toxic, right? It was like mean-spirited. It was evil how they exploited customers, ruined like legitimately well-made, interesting video game franchises. How they just like how they exploited it like into the ground. And I am sick of seeing things like Final Fantasy VII R hyped to hell and back. I'm sick of people pretending that stuff like Elden Ring is worthy of being called Game of the Year, like one of the best games ever made. Like I'm sick of people like acting like Nintendo doesn't innovate, right? Like I'm sick of like the nonsense that's going on in this community. And like I have been eagerly awaiting the Game and Crash for like about a decade at this point. And I've been talking about it since like the Wii U came out. It was the writing was on the wall even then that PlayStation and Xbox were kind of running on fumes, but it's getting worse and worse. And I think we're finally in the beginning stages of it. We're finally starting to see the symptoms like take root, in which like these video game companies will simply not be able to produce video games.